Good morning, lovelies. The log and the speck. Let's talk about it. Jesus, coffee. So, another day of walking through the valley of pride. And so many more lessons to be learned. And so many things God's shown me this morning to really help open my eyes to pride, including taking a self-evaluation that was so much fun. So I want to go through Matthew 7, verses 1 through 6, which is where Jesus talks about the log and the speck. So it's really all about judgment. Okay? Judge not that you be not judged. For with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. And with the measure that you use, it will be measured back at you. And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye? Good morning, Janice. Or how can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite. Ooh. First remove the plank from your own eye, and then you'll be able to see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under feet and turn and tear you in pieces. So let's talk about the speck and the log, right? So that talks about seeing sin in someone else's life, but we have to examine our own life first. So before we try and help a brother with a speck in his eye, we got to make sure we don't have a plank in our own eye, right? And we don't judge condemningly. When we identify sin in someone else's life, we're doing it lovingly. Hey, look, I'm seeing that this is kind of an occurrence in your life, and so we do it lovingly. We do it to help them. That's God coming to them through you to correct them and give them reproof, right? Because that's what he likes to do. So before we try and help somebody else, we need to acknowledge the sin in our own life. The plank, right? So how do we remove a speck? Well, in a literal sense of if somebody has something in their eye, we do it very carefully, right? Very carefully and very tenderly. Why? Because the eye is really sensitive, right? How do we do it figuratively? We whack them in the back of the head with a 2x4, hoping that it'll dislodge the speck. That's not loving. We don't beat each other. Hey, look, you're doing this. No, we don't beat on each other. We don't smack each other in the back of the head with a 2x4, hoping that the speck will get dislodged. That's not the way we do that. Yet, that happens a lot, which is why hypocrisy is often talked about in the church. I had a conversation with a friend yesterday, and their view on going to church and why they don't go to church, because there's hypocrites in those seats. Speck and log, right? See, the idea of the speck and the log is to birth humility, to birth tenderness, to birth gentleness, right? So we have to self-examine before we try and help somebody else. Hey, if I've got sin I need to take care of, I need to self-examine and make sure that I'm good and acknowledge, okay, I need to take care of this. It's the plank coming out of our own eye. Now we can come alongside and help them. Okay? We reach for that speck tenderly and carefully, in love. We don't go, hey, let me get that out. Okay, I'm good. No, it's not the way that happens. We're not gruff with it. And what's the purpose of removing the speck from their eye? To bring relief to them. It's not to make yourself feel better. It's not so that you're not offended or bothered by it. It's to bring them relief. Right? Guys, pride is pervasive. It's not, do I have it? It's, where is it? And how much do I have? It blinds us. We don't even see it. So we don't often know it's there. It's ugly. You know, it's the outflow of the human heart. It's the natural outflow of the human heart is pride. So if you don't think you have it, there's one observation of it right there. Not knowing you have it. We all have pride, guys. It's a natural outflow of the human heart. Pride has been around since the fall of man. Yeah, way back in the garden, guys, there was pride. Why? Eve was tempted by Satan, who was cast down due to his pride. So it was actually existent before the garden, but it was existent in humans since the garden. How did the serpent, Satan, Lucifer, tempt Eve? She would be like God, right? God-likeness. That's pride. You know, what does God think about pride? Well, Proverbs 16:5 calls it, he views God, those that are proud, as an abomination. It's disgusting, and it's disgusting to him. He reviles it. Can't stand it. So I want to go through a drawing that was in the book. I'll take a picture and post it so you guys can see it. But it talks about me, 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 me. You guys heard me talk about pride is an I, me, me, me disease of the soul. Right? So, but it's called an anthropocentric view. Because it's to me, for me, by me. Right? Everything is all about me. God exists for my convenience. Or we worship little g gods. We make our own God and we worship that. But it's a little g. We just seek to domesticate God. When we deal with pride, and we, because, again, I'm going through this study and tearing this all apart for a reason. God's doing this for a reason. Because he pricked my heart and convicted me that you got some pride you need to deal with, buddy. So let's get on it. So how do we want others to view us when we deal with pride? Well, let's talk about it. We want them to please us, serve us, respect us, and meet our needs. Right? Well, I want respect. Well, you should want to deal with your pride because it's all about you. Right? And you hear that in relationships. Well, there needs to be mutual respect. No, that's wrong view. That's about as wrong as the YOLO view of life. It's not you live once, it's you only die once. And how do we view others when we have an anthropocentric view? Well, we judge them, we criticize them, we try to impress them, and we try to manipulate them. All things I was guilty of. And all things that probably still have some things in there that God needs to work on in me. It's not I need to work on it, it's He's working on it in me. We don't fix anything. We don't do it. It's Him. He gets all the glory when He molds us to be what He wants us to be. But it takes submission. It takes being willing to get on that potter's wheel and be worked on the potter's wheel in the hands of the potter. You need to be willing to be the clay in His hands so that He can work you. You can't fight Him on the potter's wheel, because you fight Him and you're not pliable. Guess what? He can't do what He needs to do. So, be the clay in the potter's hands. This guy is, I come to him every morning and ask him for help, because I know that I can't do this, but he can. A lot of work, and a lot of walking to do. That little town called humility is a long way away. But I got the best travel partner ever. His name's Jesus. I love you guys. I know He loves you. He wants to walk with you. Stop walking apart from Him or stop walking away from Him. Walk to Him. He's one step away. You don't even have to travel very far. Just turn around. He's right there. And He's got open arms. We'll be back tomorrow with whatever Dad wants to talk about.